What kind of leader gains more influence behind bars than most presidents do in power? How does a man locked away for 27 years become a global symbol of freedom, justice, and unbreakable will? This is not just the story of Nelson Mandela. This is the story of a man who turned a prison cell into a classroom, punishment into purpose, and oppression into political momentum. Welcome to the Diaries of Power, where we study the leaders who didn't just change history. They redefined power. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. His early ambition wasn't to become a political icon, he wanted to be a lawyer. But apartheid, a system that reduced black Africans to second-class humans, forced him into activism. Mandela didn't start as a saint. He evolved. He joined the African National Congress, raised his voice, led protests, and when the government silenced peaceful demonstrations, Mandela made a pivot that shook the system. He accepted that freedom sometimes requires more than speeches. He co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the ANC. The apartheid government labeled him a terrorist. Today, the world calls him a hero. In 1964, Mandela faced the Rivonia trial, a moment that could have broken any man. Instead, Mandela turned that courtroom into a global stage. He didn't beg for mercy. He declared, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society." That speech transformed Mandela from a local activist into an international symbol. Even before prison, he was already winning. Mandela stood in a courtroom where the government expected him to beg, kneel, and apologize. But what they got was a man who used a courtroom as a global stage. Instead of pleading for mercy, Mandela delivered one of the greatest speeches in human history, a speech that outlived the judges, the prosecutors, and even the apartheid government itself. He ended with a line that shook the world. "It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Imagine the courage. Imagine the clarity. Imagine telling your enemy that you're willing to die for your dream, but they are not willing to die for theirs. That was the moment Mandela became more than a man. He became a message. They took him to Robben Island, hoping the hard labor, isolation, and humiliation would crush him. But they forgot one thing. Pressure does not destroy diamonds. It creates them. In that cold cell, Mandela did something extraordinary, something most people will never understand. He didn't survive prison. He used prison. He turned it into a university, a strategy lab, a leadership school. Here's what he built behind bars. 1. Intellectual power. Mandela studied obsessively, law, politics, psychology, negotiation. He didn't waste a single day. He sharpened his mind until it became a weapon. 2. Moral power. He treated prison guards with a respect they didn't expect. And slowly, they became allies. Imagine that. You influence the very people assigned to break you. 3. Political power. Mandela trained prisoners, mentored them, disciplined them. By the time he left prison, he had an army of loyal, educated, mentally strong followers. 4. Global power. Every year he stayed in prison, his influence grew. Every hour in that cell built more sympathy, more support, more respect. While the government thought he was disappearing, he was becoming the most famous political prisoner on earth. Prison didn't weaken Mandela. Prison removed distractions. Prison removed noise. Prison exposed him to himself. And when a man truly meets himself, the world meets a leader. Leadership doesn't start when people give you power. Leadership starts when you have nothing, and build power from the inside. In 1990, when Mandela walked out of prison, the world expected a broken man. Instead, they saw a lion who walked slowly, confidently, disciplined, as if prison had only strengthened his spine. He didn't rise to power by fighting his enemies. He rose by outgrowing them. He forgave without forgetting, negotiated without surrendering, led without bullying. In 1994, Mandela became the president of a nation that once banned him from voting. Think about that. The country that tried to silence him ended up electing him. Tell me if there is a greater example of poetic justice. Mandela's life teaches a brutal truth. Your environment cannot stop your evolution. Unless you stop evolving, you may be trapped in a situation right now, financially, emotionally, mentally. But Mandela shows us something. A prison is not a place. A prison is a mindset. And freedom is not a location. Freedom is a decision. Mandela decided that no matter what they did to him, they would not touch his purpose. And that decision changed a continent. This is why Nelson Mandela remains one of the greatest leaders of the last century. Not because he had power, but because he built power under conditions designed to destroy him. If this story lit a fire in you, if it changed the way you understand power, then subscribe to the Diaries of Power, and continue your journey into the minds of history's greatest leaders. Your rise begins here.